In this tutorial, I'll cover managing parties in Mercenta's smart agreements. The target audience for this tutorial are agreement administrators, who will be responsible for maintaining their agreements parties. Although we assume no prior knowledge, it would help if you are familiar with companies in Mercenta's organization module. If that's a gap in your knowledge, then I invite you to review that tutorial first before continuing. First, some background. Supply agreements are legally binding contracts that establish the terms and conditions between the buying and supplying parties. These parties are in fact the companies that will be buying and supplying the goods and services under the terms of the agreement. Companies in Mercenta must be commercial entities with the legal capacity to enter into agreements, assume obligations, incur and pay debts, and be held responsible for their actions. It is crucial to clearly define these parties to the agreement to ensure clear privity in the agreement. By clearly defining the parties involved, their roles and responsibilities, potential misunderstandings and disputes can be minimized. Mercenta currently only supports direct privity across single and multi-party agreements, which means that the explicitly listed parties are bound by the agreement. This ensures a direct and transparent contractual relationship between the involved parties. Multi-party agreements are particularly useful for large, geographically dispersed organizations where multiple supplier sites may serve multiple customer sites under the same agreement. Currently, we do not support indirect privity, such as in master-style agreements where a parent company can bind its subsidiaries under the terms of an umbrella agreement. However, we have plans to implement this feature in the future as part of our roadmap. If this is a crucial requirement for your business, please let us know, and we will prioritize the development of this feature to meet your needs. When you initially create a proposal for a new agreement, no parties are selected by default. During this stage, you can work on the proposal as usual, with the exception that you won't be able to add products since they are tied to the parties. However, it's important to note that Mercenta will prevent you from submitting the proposal for approval unless both buying or supplying organizations have at least one party selected. This is because the approval of proposals is performed by the individual companies that are party to the agreement. Since only the buying organization can initiate the agreement formation, they will need to unilaterally designate at least one company from the supplying organization as the counterparty. But I strongly recommended that you first discuss and coordinate your choice with your supplier to avoid the risk of proposal rejection at this early stage. You have the flexibility to add as many parties as you wish from either organization's companies, especially if you are setting up a multi-party agreement. Once the proposal is approved, you can make changes, including removing parties, but as with all agreement changes, they must be executed through the proposal mechanism, which requires approval from all parties affected by the change. Note that even the removed party must approve the proposal. Both the buying and supplying organizations have the authority to add and remove their counterparties from the proposal. This is not as scary as it sounds because such changes would need to be approved. When you add a party to an agreement, their short name and full legal name and address, as defined in the organization module for that company, are automatically copied over to the proposal. I'll cover writing legal text for the parties in the final section of this tutorial in more depth, but you will need to incorporate these parties into your agreement in the Parties section typically located near the beginning of your legal text. We've anticipated that you'll probably want to use the short name in your legal text as a defined term for the abbreviated name of the party. You're free to change the short name to something more appropriate for the particular agreement, but it can't be empty, must be unique, and is limited to 50 characters. Once incorporated into the agreement, the legal name and address is essential for accurately identifying and distinguishing the parties involved in the agreement. Ensuring that they stay up to date is obviously important. But these fields can't be changed directly. Instead, if Mercenta detects that the underlying information has changed, a warning label will be attached to the affected party. The only way to resolve this warning is to accept the change and submit the proposal for approval. This ensures that the legal identification data stays in sync with the company data and that all changes to the agreement are made through the parties approving proposals. That covers all the theory that you'll need to know about parties. I'll pass you over to Natasha to demonstrate what we just learned.
Thanks, William. To prepare for this demo, I've registered a fictional organization called Pluto, based in Poland. Let's assume that Pluto produces bicycles across 3 sites in and around Warsaw. For this demonstration, I've created a fictional proposal to create a new agreement with a supplier named Acme. Acme will supply painted metal parts for Pluto. Now, let's load this proposal by clicking on the Agreements main menu and selecting the metal fabrication proposal that I just mentioned, under the counterparty, Acme. Once the proposal menu loads, you'll notice a warning label on the Parties menu item in the Agreement section. This warning is because I just created this proposal and haven't selected any parties yet. We need to clear this warning before we can submit the proposal for approval. Click on the Parties menu item. You'll see that the parties will be grouped under the Buying and Supplying section headers, but both sections are currently empty. First, let's add the companies that will be the buying parties to this agreement. Click on the plus icon to the right of the Buying section header. In the dialog that appears, you'll notice that Pluto's 3 sites are listed. I'll select the Final Assembly and Metal Products sites, and then click the Add button. Notice now that the 2 sites we selected have been added to the agreement. Next, let's add the supplying party. Click on the plus icon to the right of the Supplying section header. Since Acme's German site will be supplying our plants, select Acme Germany and click the Add button. Great, the parties have been added, and you'll notice that the warning has been cleared. Now, let's view the party form by clicking on the first party in the Buying section. When the form loads, let me guide you through the layout. The first field here is the name, which you're free to change as long as it's not empty, limited to 50 characters, and unique within the agreement. The other 2 fields are the party identification fields that can only be changed when Mercenta detects that the company has changed. I'll demonstrate this in a moment. Finally, at the bottom of the form, you'll find an area where you can choose or design an approval workflow that this party will use to approve this proposal. Currently, I don't have authorization to access this feature, but we'll demonstrate it in the approvals tutorial later on. Before I close out of the form, please note that the Remove button is located at the bottom of the form. If I click it, the party and any products added by the party will be removed from the agreement. Now, let's change the company address to demonstrate how it works. Go to the Organization module and click through to the company, PFR. I'll change the address and then save my changes. Now, let's go back to the parties. On the Parties menu, notice that an alert has been added to the party. When we load the party form, you'll see that the address field is highlighted. I'll now accept the change by clicking the Update button. Notice that the address has been changed. Finally, I'll click the Save button and exit the form. That completes the demonstration for the parties. I'll say my goodbyes and hand you back to William for closing remarks.
Thanks, Natasha. That's all for this tutorial on managing parties in your agreements. Before we conclude, let's recap what we've learned. First, we introduced companies as the key parties involved in supply agreements, emphasizing the importance of clearly defining these parties to ensure the accurate fulfillment of obligations, responsibilities, and benefits. We then explored the methods of assigning parties to the agreement. While Mercenta currently supports direct privity across single and multi-party agreements, master-style agreements are not yet supported. Next, we delved into party properties. We explained how the company's short name, legal name, and address are automatically copied over to the proposal, highlighting the significance of using the latter fields to identify the parties in the agreement. We also discussed the usefulness of the short name as a defined term for the abbreviated name. We touched on the fact that while the short name can be changed freely, updates to the underlying legal name and address follow a one-way path from the original company to the agreement. We outlined how Mercenta alerts users when such changes are detected and provided guidance on resolving these alerts. Lastly, Natasha demonstrated all the features and concepts explained in a fictional proposal, offering a practical illustration of the concepts discussed. With this knowledge, you are now well equipped to handle the management of parties in your agreements effectively. Thank you for joining us. Goodbye.